We are right now experiencing the steepest inflation surge in nearly 40 years. Americans are putting the blame on President Biden and his policies. A new Fox Business poll finds when it comes to inflation, nearly half of those who took the poll say the president's administration actions are actually hurting the country. That's twice as many people who think that his ideas are helping. And it's an issue that is top of mind for voters. 84% say they are extremely or very worried about inflation and higher prices. Power panel now. T.W. Shannon, former co-chair of Black Voices for Trump and former Speaker of the Oklahoma House. Leslie Marshall, Fox News contributor and a fantastic radio host. Good to see you both. Leslie, I'll start with you. If poll after poll is showing, and there are a fair amount of independent voters now in these polls that we're looking at, because that's kind of the thing, right? That's where everybody wants to focus. And if they have lost trust in this president and the one thing that's most important to them right now, that's the economy, what does that mean to you?
Well, the economy is number one with voters. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. It is still the economy, stupid. Here's the thing. The reality is inflation is here. It's not just in the United States. The UK has a higher inflation rate than they've had in decades. No, it is. Joe Biden can't be blamed for the world, but he can be blamed for the United States. We've seen it with past presidencies, Ford and Carter. But the reality is, Harris, that there's very little any White House can do. Now, I know Republicans, and I know my opponent here is going to say otherwise, but really, when you look at it, okay, you could tap into more petroleum reserves. That might give you a tiny cent or two at the gas pump. You can raise immigration levels to help with the jobs that aren't being filled. You can't really do much more at the ports. So there's a few things here. One, messaging from the Democrats. Remember, the big Build Back Better was touted, the price tag was touted, as opposed to the benefits in the Build Back Better package. But at the end of the day, this is part of what we're dealing with because of this pandemic, not just here in the United States, but worldwide. It will be temporary, but certainly anyone in power is going to be blamed for that, as the president is.
With all due respect, Leslie, I'm going to cut in so that TW can talk, because now you've gotten to the White House talking points, and we know them because we hear them every day. Go ahead, TW.
Absolutely, Harris. You know, it's amazing to listen to Leslie try to defend what the administration has done, but it's exactly what the Democrats always do. They do things like they increase the national debt from $21 trillion to $28 trillion. Then they impose unconstitutional mandates that compound the supply chain. And then they pay people to stay home. And then they scare people to go to work because of the virus. And then they do exactly what Leslie does. They throw up their hand and say, well, there's really nothing we can do. There's inflation everywhere else. Look, the buck stops with the president. This president has been an abysmal failure with handling the economy. But he's done one thing. He's kept one campaign pledge, and that's his. He pledged to unite this country, and this country is united. The country is rejecting the socialist policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And I think in this next election, voters are going to turn out to really make the case that we don't want any more of their socialist policies. We embrace capitalism. That's the only system that works.
Yeah, you know, just real quickly, Leslie, you brought up something that may have people scratching their heads. So we had like 4 million people who'd quit their jobs last check in October. That's a lot of people leaving the workforce. And the answer back in this tough time from you was, well, increase the levels of immigration so we can fill some of the jobs that Americans say they don't want. I don't know that that solves the problem. We're still not COVID testing them enough. We're still, I mean, that opens up a whole nother Pandora's box. You and I can get into it another day, but I wanted to at least acknowledge that in case anybody didn't hear you say it. A new Fox News op-ed calling out the liberal media for lying about inflation and its effect on the American people. Case in point, liberal economist Paul Krugman tweeting, "Is there any good reason to believe that inflation hits low-income households especially hard?" Critics on Twitter fired back. Well, it's like this, Paul. Inflation goes up by $300 a month for you, and you have to slightly reduce the amount you save every month. It goes $300 a month for me, and I can't heat my house in the winter. Another, it's beyond parody that you guys are going with the actually inflation is good for poor people position. Bravo. In fact, new analysis from University of Pennsylvania's Wharton Business School finds the average American household spent $3,500 more in 2021 than previous years. Reverse order now, TW, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is the highest inflation we've seen in several generations, 6.8% from last year. This is the largest increase in 39 years. Core consumer prices, which excludes food and energy, increased 4.9%, Harris. I mean, the reality is this. Everything costs more in Joe Biden's America. And unfortunately, these reckless policies by the administration, they're wanting to take no blame for it. At least now they're at least admitting there is inflation, because remember, at the beginning, all we heard was, well, it's only transitory. Then we heard, well, inflation's actually good for the economy. The truth is, Americans can't afford Joe Biden. Everything is more expensive, and the only thing we can do now is try to hope and pray that somehow we'll see some relief with the supply chain command, because there are empty shelves everywhere. This is a scary time in America, and it's a direct result of Joe Biden's policies.
Leslie.
The feds are actively working and aggressively to combat inflation. We saw a reflection of that yesterday with stocks up on Wall Street. And I would say it's a stretch to say the liberal media is lying about inflation. CBS, ABC, NBC, CNN, all for the past 5 days have been stating that inflation is at its highest, et cetera. Paul Krugman is a liberal, but doesn't speak for all liberals in the media or otherwise.
All right. Good to see you both.
Didn't they tell us that it was only transitory? Wasn't that a lie?
Actually, it was the feds and the Treasury Secretary who originally said that. Yes, that's what they believe.
That's not part of the Biden administration?
One thing we know about money is it is cyclical and transitory.
Yeah, it absolutely is not transitory. It is here to stay. It's going to be for a long time. This is Jimmy Carter 2.0. Joe Biden has caused this country to cater
hope and want, but
and to fall because of the policies he's promoting. And unfortunately, no one wants to take the blame, but Americans are paying the price for it.
All right. Good to have the discussion. Great debate. Thank you. Leslie, TW. See you next time.